and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Is it possible that summer might be arriving?
Matt, now you said it out loud, so now it will disappear. Thank you.
Well, thanks for listening. This is Life Unrehearsed, a show about the ins and outs of family life. It could be about yourselves, it could be about your elderly parents, or even about the kids. We try to tackle these topics, and we want to make sure you're not alone in all of this as we navigate you through it all. My name is Matt DelVecchio. I specialize in free retirement home search and senior transition support, and I'm here with my co-host Stephanie Erickson, a social worker and family caregiving expert who is out of breath as she just cut into the studio.
Oh my
Hello,
God.
Stephanie.
Hour and a half from Lachine. Holy cow. Yeah, I barely made it, but yes, I'm here. And welcome back from your week respite. How was your vacation with Steph?
It was very good. Thank you. Yeah, we had a great vacation. We were out of town, and it was funny because I was listening to the show as I was driving, and we caught parts of it on CJD. We caught parts of it on CJD.com because we were out of the area, and we missed part of it, so we caught it on Life Unrehearsed Facebook page.
That's so funny.
We encourage you to go on Life Unrehearsed Facebook page. We carry it live, and whatever you miss, and there's a whole resource of libraries on that, and so that was a great vacation. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going solo next week because you really have an important announcement, don't you?
Well, yes, although I don't know that it's an announcement. It's definitely not work related, but it is a dream come true next week. Flying trapeze is my thing, as you know, Matt. That's my passion. It's something that I do twice a week. I've been doing it coming up on 4 years, and next week I am honored. My coach invited me to join the team, and I'm in a fair. I'm in an actual professional show next weekend in Avonmore. I cannot believe it. I've been working really hard the last couple of weeks. My elbow is killing me as a result, but I'm super excited. It's probably the biggest thing that I feel has ever happened to me, way more than work. This is it.
Way to go. Congratulations.
Thank
What
you.
an exciting
Really
time.
excited.
You've worked really, really hard to get this. So way to go. And
Thanks.
Talking about working hard, I have to give kudos to Jason Finucane last week, who pinch hit for me. Did a great job. Jason, you're a natural. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, he was great. He was great. Thanks, Jason, for coming in. Let's jump in, Matt, because we have a lot to talk about for sure. I'm happy to have our guest in studio today. This is something that hopefully my children are listening to. It's a bit early, but I'm going to be one of those people who will want to stay in my house forever. You will not take me out. I'll be someone saying, I'm going to die here no matter what. I don't care what kind of support I need. And no, don't let anybody in. I want my privacy. So today we're going to be talking about home care and how we can keep people in their homes for a longer period of time. And we have the owner of home care, one of the owners, of home care assistance in, Tim Thomas. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome, Tim.
Yes, thanks, Matt.
I'm really glad you're here. So we'll talk about some resistance because I'm sure that's pretty common. But before we get to that, let's just kind of give an overview of home care and what are the usual types of support that people get.
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing to consider, I think, is home care is very much customized to the needs of each of the clients. So at the very base, I mean, what we do is we assist seniors with anything from eating, bathing, dressing, toileting, anything related to mobility as well, and incontinence concerns. But on top of that, we look at the whole lifestyle picture. We want to make sure that they're engaged, they're having the support they need at home, and we're giving the family the respite they need as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Tim, you mentioned, several, I guess, tasks and jobs that caregivers will give. Sometimes I get asked, is it companionship or is it a nurse that's there all the time? And so I guess in your assessments, you may require a nurse, but sometimes you really don't require a nurse.
Yeah, exactly. The services of a nurse are usually the least of the requests that we receive. Typically, we can break our care down into three categories. One is companionship. Secondary would be sort of what we call a nurse's aide. And then third and more on the medical side is related to an actual licensed practical nurse.
Okay, so let's break that down. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Stephanie Erickson, social worker, family caregiving expert, here with Matt DelVecchio, retirement, home search, and senior transition specialist, in studio with Tim Thomas from Home Care Assistance. You just broke it down into three pieces, the type of care I guess usually people have at home. Let's talk about specifically what that means. Companionship was the first thing you talked about. So what do you mean by that?
Well, companionship, I mean, obviously can cover a lot of different things, but, many seniors as they age, they withdraw. They tend to get out of the house less, and that can lead to a lot of changes in terms of condition. You can see depression be quite prevalent. So companionship is someone, will identify a caregiver, maybe someone who has life experience, not necessarily someone certified as a nurse's aide, that's going to be able to come in and really try to connect with the senior. Try to pick up some activities they can do together, whether that's getting out of the house and engaging into the community, going to a rec center or a senior center to engage in those types of activities. Or if the senior's maybe a little bit has reduced mobility, staying at home, engaging in different types of cognitive stimulation. We actually have a program that we've designed based all around that for those who have light to moderate cognitive decline as well.
Oh.
You're listening to Life Unrehearsed, and Tim, we're going to open up the lines right away. There's
Sure.
a lot of interest, and so if you would like to ask a question about home care and how it works, please call us at 514-790-0800 or text us at 514-800. Stephanie talked about an important topic called resistance.
Yes, resistance is.
I didn't.
She's not resisting the question of resistance. But there's, it's only natural for everyone to want to stay at home for as long as they can. We're talking about their pride and dignity, and I'm sure you run into situations, I see it in my business, where no, I don't need any help, I'm fine. And so that puts certainly your caregivers in a bit of a predicament, in a situation. So what could you recommend to adult children when there is resistance from mom or dad?
Sure. I think it starts with the family. First and foremost, it's important to have a family meeting. I mean, I take a lot of the calls at the office in terms of people inquiring about our services, and that's one of the things that comes up most often. My parents are resistant to this, or my mother's resistant to this. What can we do? So I think it's important to sit down as a family and have a bit of a family meeting to address these concerns. And it's best to do it sort of in a relaxed atmosphere where you can sit down and have this conversation come up naturally, as opposed to a confrontational get together where let's talk about your need for care. How about mom or dad? How are you finding things lately? How are you managing with cooking? How are you managing with handling the household? So those types of things can help just get the discussion started.
Yeah, and there's probably some other things you can do to proactively, hopefully, get the senior invested. Maybe we can get to that in a minute. The other thing that I want to go back to as well is you talked about a specialized program for cognitive difficulties. So I want to talk about what you guys have created specifically to help.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. I didn't even know you had that. That's such a nice song, Phil Collins.
That is great.
That's going to be me to my kids. Take me home when they try and, relocate me to some sort of a retirement residence. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio. If you have a question about home care, because in studio today we have Tim Thomas with Home Care Assistance. If you have a question about how home care works, give us a call, 514-790-0800, or of course you can text us at 514-800. Before we went out to traffic, Tim, we were talking about cognitive activities or some sort of a program that Home Care Assistance has created to, I guess, improve cognition in the home. Tell me about that.
Yeah, exactly. So we partnered with a memory clinic, our head office actually in the United States. And we created a program called the Cognitive Therapeutics Method. And what it is, it's a brain fitness program. So similarly, as you would train the muscles in your body, we created a program to train your brain. And what it is, it's a series of over 300 activities that touch on the 5 cognitive domains. So everything from memory, language, attention, executive functioning, and visual spatial perception. This program is meant to really work with seniors who have maybe mild to moderate forms of dementia, or even those who are at risk potentially because of a family member who may have had it in the past. So our caregivers, actually, we have 2 levels to the program. One can be administered by a caregiver and the other by a brain fitness expert, someone with a psychology background.
Oh, wow.
That'll come in and work for an hour a day, or an hour per session, I should say, to a minimum of 3 times a week, and really try to work on these cognitive domains in an effort to slow down any further progression, but also to help with confidence building. And as we were talking about earlier, when seniors kind of have this kind of cognitive decline, they pull back, they regress, and they don't get out as much. So having the confidence can help them kind of get back into engaging with their family.
Wow.
It's a powerful program. I've read up on it, and
yeah, we're excited.
It is. No, good for you guys and Home Care Assistance, because it's only going to become more and more popular as the population ages and cognitive needs increase.
Yeah.
Tim, one of the questions in my world, I'll usually get a call from a family, sometimes desperate family, mom or dad might be in the hospital and they're thinking automatically they need to place mom or dad into a senior residence. Relocate, yes. Place. Bad word.
We place a bottle of water, not a person. Sorry, Matt.
But you're right. And so one of the first questions I will ask, though, is, are you getting any support from CLSC? And sometimes they're all over it. Sometimes they're very confused. They don't know what to do. And they try to get hours at home to help mom and dad. But sometimes what they don't even realize is that they can get additional hours through private care over and above CLSC, because let's face it, resources are stretched. There's not enough hours there. And I think that's a natural for private home care companies to come in to complement what's being offered to CLSC.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the CLSC is doing the best they can with the resources they have. But oftentimes, there's inconsistency in terms of caregivers that are coming in on a daily basis. So private care can come and kind of pick up the slack, so to speak, and provide not just the tasks that a senior needs, but also the social support too. So coming in and providing a bath one or two times a week is important, and the CLSC does that. But there's a lot more that's required, and that's where we can come in and having a detailed consultation where a nurse or a social worker is coming in, a member of our team, to do an assessment and building a care plan to really look at the whole holistic approach to care, I think is something that the CLSC can provide.
And from what I hear from families, and maybe you too, Matt, sometimes the CLSC, because their funding fluctuates, a family might have, 20 hours and then funding sources change, or there's, some sort of political movement, and all of a sudden they go from 20 hours to 5. Meanwhile, the family has already kind of organized their life around the 20. So I guess you could fill in those situations too.
Absolutely.
I also hear that you may not get the same caregiver in CLSC. There's a high turnover and it's a different person. I think they try to keep it consistent, but this sort of leads into a very interesting text we got, and I think a common question you might have. Hello, my mother only speaks Italian. And Italian, all right.
Hey,
there you go. That's a good
That's
text.
all I know.
And your services sound exceptional. However, I'm concerned you don't offer Italian-speaking caregivers. So this is specific to Italian, but I think the bigger question is, how do you match caregivers culturally with your customers?
That's where it comes down to really building a very detailed care plan and having a professional come in and evaluate your mother or father and understanding what their needs are, what their personality is like, and what type of caregiver is going to match best with those needs from a qualification standpoint, but also personality.
And a language, I guess.
And language, yeah. So we do the best we can. We can guarantee English and French. We do get a ton of requests from the Italian community, and there's not enough supply of Italian-speaking caregivers. But we would do our best, definitely.
We have 2 callers that are coming in. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed, and obviously this is a hot topic. I'm Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio, and in studio we have with us Tim Thomas from Home Care Assistance. We're talking about, obviously, all the services you offer, and we wanted to get to this anyway. Pat from Côte-de-Neige is on the line, and we'd like to hear from her. Hi, Pat. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I've been listening on and off, but because you usually cover something, but this is absolutely spot on.
Awesome.
For my mother, and I have. I got a whole bunch of questions, so they're all going in my head.
Okay, so let's start with
the most important
one. Are there a minimum amount of hours you have to get a caregiver that you charge for? I'd like to know what it would cost. And are they sort of trained in, how do I put this? My mother was a grumpy young woman. Now she's a grumpy old woman. She's 91. You don't get that old without knowing what you want and when you want it and that type of thing.
That's right, Pat. And actually, I'm 47 and I know what I want and when I want. I could be pretty grumpy too. But those are some good questions, Tim.
Questions.
So let's break it down. So number 1, is there a minimum of hours and how much would that cost? And then the other thing is specialized training for maybe some more challenging personalities.
Sure. So our minimum level of service is a 4-hour block 3 times per week. And we feel that's the best setup in order to be able to provide a consistent caregiver, so a caregiver that's going to make a long-term commitment to a family that you can bond with, and it's going to be enough time to really take care of all the tasks that need to be looked at. So, that may seem like a lot, but there's 168 hours in a week. So 12 hours represents what, 7%, less than 10%. We're not taking away their autonomy. We're actually going to be giving them more autonomy by taking on all these tasks. And, from the perspective of a daughter, you're going to have a better time coming in and actually spending time with your family or your mother or father, as opposed to going in and doing some tasks and trying to be the caregiver for them.
I think that's a big part of hiring home care assistants, to give the adult children a break, some respite.
Yeah, let them be a child again.
Now, just getting to the question on I get asked a lot, about the cost of home care, and it's not an easy answer because I guess it depends on the type of service being provided. It would be different cost levels. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. So within those three categories we talked about earlier, from companionship to a nurse's aide, all the way to a little bit more on the medical side with a licensed practical nurse. But typically our prices vary between $23 and $26 per hour.
And there are some tax write-offs and stuff that you can do.
That's correct. There's a government tax credit on home care service that can be up to 35% back.
Yeah.
So that brings the cost down to closer to $18 an hour.
Okay, so we're winding down on time, but I'd like to take this other call. We have another call in. We've got Kathleen from TMR, and she wants to talk about she saw improvement, but then her mom doesn't want home care. So I think we're going back to this personality question that Pat had earlier. Hi, Kathleen.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, I'm very interested to hear this and also to give a testimonial, because when my mom came out of the hospital about 2 months ago, we had already started with home care assistance, and we continued for 4-hour blocks a week, and with the cognitive program. And all of us, the family, have noticed an improvement in my mom. She's eating better, she's stronger, she's gaining weight. Her memory or her aptitude has improved.
Wow.
And she's not isolated. She's getting out and doing things. She still has the forgetfulness. And I think my question is to Tim, or to all of you as well. As a family, my sister and I often, and my daughter, have to say, Mom, you're doing really well. We're sticking with this program. It's great. It helps you stay in your home. And then every week or so, maybe twice a week, my mom will say, I really don't need
Kathleen,
her.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're going to run down on time, and I want to make sure that Tim has an answer for you so he can respond. So we're talking about, I guess, that this woman doesn't necessarily want more care in the home, but the children want the care to stay in. So how do we handle that?
Sure. Well, I know Kathleen very well, and thanks for calling in. Basically, I think it's important to keep the care where it is, because you're only going to regress if you cut back on care. We've managed to stabilize things, and that's what's most important.
Right.
And, in time, it's likely that the care will need to increase. So
Good
you can't cut back now.
Yeah.
Kathleen, thanks for calling in, and real testament to yourself, Tim, and home care assistants.
Yeah.
We're already wrapping up.
That was quick.
It was very quick. How can people reach you or home care assistants?
Sure. So they can visit us on the web at homecareassistancemontreal.ca. They can call us at 514-907-5065, or reach us on Facebook too at HCA Montreal.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Tim, thank you so much for being on
Pleasure.
the show.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, I wish all of you could see Matt's face right now. He thinks this song is ridiculous, but it's perfect for our topic. I love that song. Well, welcome back. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed.
It was the dancing, Stephanie. That's what I was laughing at.
Oh, come on. I'm not a bad dancer. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed, a show where we talk about all the ins and outs, challenges and triumphs and excitements of life, helping an aging relative, parenting, whatever might come at you. And today we're going to be talking about what can happen for us as adults as well. So we'll be talking about ourselves. But before we get to that, just to remind you, I'm Stephanie Erickson, social worker, family caregiving expert, here with my co-host, Matt DelVecchio, and he does free retirement home searches and senior transitions. Matt, I saw a very sexy picture of you.
You did you?
Yes. No, I think it was this morning on Facebook. You were wearing shorts and your nice hairy legs and these red high heels. What was going on?
Yeah, I chose not to shave the legs for the cause. But you know what? I participated in a charity event yesterday. It's called Walk a Mile in Her Shoes. And this is an annual event. It's put on, a fantastic event, a fun event, a painful event, I should say. It was put on by the great people at Royal LePage Village, NDG. They even had the NDG Fire Department there, and about 100 people in all participated. There were 25 of us that had to wear the same identical 4-inch heel, red,
4 inches?
red
Oof, even I wouldn't do
pointy
that.
shoes, and we had to walk a mile in her shoes. This was all for Auberge Transition, which is a wonderful women's shelter dealing with domestic violence and spousal abuse.
Nice.
So they raised a total of over $17,000 for the day's event. They had a big barbecue afterwards, so it was a little painful towards
have any
the
blisters?
end. Oh, yeah. But it was all worth it. A wonderful, wonderful cause.
Oh, that's great. And I guess you probably met a lot of new people, huh?
A lot of new people, made some new friends. And speaking of friends, we often get asked this, and to a point where we wanted to invite Miriam here, because as adults, we always find it a little more challenging to find friends, yet the importance of friends is crucial. So we're very pleased to have as our guest today, Miriam Kirmayer, who's a therapist specializing in adult friendships. Miriam, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
I guess let's just start it off. Why are friendships so important for adults?
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I mean, I think when we talk about the importance of friendships, often we're talking about them for children's well-being and development. So we know that friends help kids learn pro-social skills, sharing, empathy, compassion. We know that they protect children from being bullied. But one of the things we're seeing more and more is just how important friends are for adults' well-being too, both their physical health and emotional well-being.
Yeah, and I can confirm that. I mean, I've been very fortunate in my life to have a lot of really good friends, most of them girls, but I have several good guy friends as well. But I mean, I'm surrounded by like a tribe of amazing, independent, really strong women, and I feel super lucky. And it's helped actually with all the technology, and I wanted to ask you about that. I mean, I've been friends with lots of them anyway, but now with like Facebook, we have all these group messaging and texting, all this stuff going on. Is technology only helping to maintain friendships, or are there some downsides to it?
It's a great question, and one that I'm asked quite often. I think it's a double-edged sword. So on the one hand, it can really help us maintain our friendships. It's easier to stay in touch. It's easier to stay up to date on what's happening in our friends' lives. You can send a quick text message here and there, make a quick phone call, see things on Facebook. But at the same time, the quality of the interactions can suffer sometimes. And so we need to be extra mindful in terms of what we're sharing and how we're sharing it.
You know, it's interesting. You talked about that Facebook post with those red shoes and the legs showing. Yeah. I had friends from all over, Canada and the States coming in.
Matt, that picture does spark a bit of interest in some questions.
I wonder why. But it was nice to hear from a lot of the people who I haven't heard. Unfortunately, it took a pair of high heel shoes to get them to talk about. But, we talked about technology. But in general, I think as adults, once you start having the kids and kids take priority and you get your inner circle going, and you tend to perhaps lose some of those friends. Some stay lifelong friends, but you do lose some friends. And can you tell us about some of the challenges in trying to maintain some of those friendships? Because it does take a little bit of work.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does. I mean, I think that, as you said, other relationships can take priority. Relationships with our partners, our spouses, our children, even our colleagues to some extent. But it is so important to keep those friends in our lives. And so whether we're juggling other relationships, other responsibilities, these are all things that kind of need to be managed in different ways.
Yeah, you're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio, and in studio we have with us Miriam Kirmayer, who is a therapist specializing in adult relationships. So you're talking about how important it is to cultivate and maintain those friendships. So with all those challenges that Matt was talking about, how do we do it? I mean, I know that for myself, every 2 years, me and my girlfriends from California, we all get together, the 6 of us, every 2 years, and we have like 4 days together. We make it a point to do that. So for me, it's working. But and my husband is very supportive, and maybe that's one of the things. But how can we do that as adults when we do have all of these demands on us?
I think it's a matter of both kind of balancing the past, the present, and the future. So the past part is really reminiscing about the things that brought you together in the first place. So again, sending a quick text message or giving a friend a phone call when something reminds you of them or reminds you of a really nice memory that you had. In terms of the future, though, you really need to invest in making new memories. So it's not enough to just live in the past. We need to find new ways to connect, new things to talk about, be kind of open and vulnerable about what it is we're really struggling with in that moment. And then in terms of the present piece, it's really being open about what your limits are. So maybe you're not able to see each other as often as you used to, or not able to talk as often as you used to, but you are able to have this girls' getaway weekend.
Right.
And so being really open and clear about what your limits are, and also being open and responsive to those of your friends.
It's interesting because, you have to make it a priority. You could just go on. People will find tons of excuses, the kids and everything. And you do have to make it a priority. And you talk about a getaway weekend with friends. I think there's so much value in that. And it might only be a day or two. What about at work? We tend to be at work a lot more. And there's some friendships developing with work. Can you quickly talk about good, bad?
Great question. And again, one that's quite popular. It is a balance. So the research is fairly clear that feeling socially connected at work is hugely beneficial, both to employees and employers. We're happier, we're more productive, we're more invested, we're more motivated to go to work. So it certainly is important to develop those kinds of relationships there. At the same time, there are unique situations that need to be managed in terms of the kinds of things that you disclose about yourself or about your work.
Matt, are you happier with that song?
Yes. The feet are tapping with regular shoes.
A little Toy Story. That movie is so cute. You're listening to Life Unrehearsed. Stephanie Erickson here with Matt DelVecchio. And in studio, we have with us Miriam Kirmayer, who is a therapist specializing in adult friendships. Miriam, before we went out to traffic, you were talking about work and having friendships at work. Prior to that, you were talking about how important it is to be vulnerable with your friends. And anyone who's a friend of mine knows that I am an open book. Everybody knows all sorts of things about me. Some friends know more than others, but I'm very open and vulnerable.
Really?
Yeah, are you surprised? Yeah. I mean, well, I'm posting things about my anxiety like everybody knows. But, I work alone. I have my own business. So I don't have to necessarily open up to other colleagues. I can just do this with my friends. How do you balance that at work? If one of the successes of having friendships is being vulnerable, but these are people you have to see every day, how does that work?
Well, it is a balance. I mean, on the one hand, this vulnerability that we're talking about, or this idea of self-disclosure, sharing little bits of information about yourself, your experiences, your likes, your dislikes. This is one of the key ways that we actually build friendships and get a friendship off the ground. At the same time, when we're building relationships at work, there are special considerations that we need to make sure we're thinking of. We don't want to overshare, especially right away. We want to give a little bit of information very slowly and build that trust over time. So it is a careful balance that we need to consider when we're making friends at work.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And Stephanie and I were talking off here, and you were talking about all your female friends. Yeah. And it seems to be that, women and friendships are more important perhaps than men and friendships with other men. And I always find the topic intriguing. I think, and I'm generalizing here, but with guys, we don't get too deep. You put a beer in our hand, a sports game on, and we keep it really above surface and so on. But I think we can't underestimate the power of friendships. And I've got a really neat story, real life story. I've got two real good buddies right now, both going through cancer. One's 49 and one's 51. And they're going through some tough times, but they have both said, you can't underestimate the power of your friends. And they also say, you see when your friends come out here. And one of my two friends, he's in Toronto, the 51-year-old in Toronto. And I talked to him last week, prostate cancer, full operations, and he's doing very, very well. And he says, Matt, thank you for being there for me. And I said, Mike, I said, I live in Montreal. I didn't really do that much. He goes, you have no idea what your 2-line texts of encouragement mean to me. And so it really struck me. And it goes to show that the friendships, even on men, although we try to be macho and above board, they really does make a difference.
But Matt, along that line, Miriam, do women and men usually cultivate and maintain friendships differently? Because what Matt was talking about is a bit different than, I do text my friends, but it is a bit different.
Yeah, with any of these things, the differences within genders can sometimes be far greater than the differences between, but there is some evidence that men and women build friendships differently. So perhaps with women, this idea of self-disclosure and intimacy and being vulnerable is more important or effective. With men, it's usually through doing activities. Now, this is a stereotype, but there is some research to back this up too.
He just said he drinks beer with his
there
friends.
You go.
There you go.
There you go. That's
and I also
the key.
said I just walked around in red high-heeled shoes.
Those are interesting. Those are interesting characteristics to attract friends. Speaking of attracting friends, though, it can be awkward, right? As an adult, to you're not going to call someone, or you meet someone and you want to have a play date? What do you do if you meet someone and you feel like you have a connection and you want to start building a friendship? What can we do?
Well, I'm so glad you're asking this question because we talk about this so much in terms of romantic relationships. Everyone's always looking for dating advice, and that's talked about really openly. But we don't really talk about how hard and uncomfortable it is to put ourselves out there and make friends. And there really isn't a rule book. Now, that's a good thing because it means we can do what we're most comfortable doing or say something that feels authentic to us. But at the same time, it can leave us feeling really confused and just unsure of what to say or do. So there are a few different strategies that I recommend. The first is, again, coming back to this idea of similarity, pointing out something you have in common with somebody else. Similarity is often the root or the basis of a friendship, and that can be a really great starting point for building a friendship and building future conversations. Giving somebody a compliment is also a really nice way to approach somebody. You want to make sure that it's genuine and authentic, and you don't want to overdo it. Sometimes if you give more, it can start to sound less and less genuine.
That's right.
Humor is another great strategy, but again, you want to make sure that this is your authentic brand of humor and you don't want to force it. But that can be a good litmus test to see if you have something in common with somebody else.
Those are some good suggestions.
Absolutely.
Can you believe this? Again, we're almost out of time. It's ridiculous. There's like no time to delve into these subjects.
Really flew by, but obviously we see the power in friendships, and I think we could all speak personally about how important they are.
Absolutely.
Even in your senior years, and I even hear my dad, and he's losing some friends, and
that's so hard.
but he's got such a great network of good buddies, and it's so important to them. So
if I did not have my girlfriends, I do not know where I would be right now. I mean, they have been essential in my life. Miriam, if someone wants to get in touch with you, how can they reach you?
So currently the best way to do it is to check out my website, casualtoclose.com.
I love that.
I'm going to be launching my new website very shortly, miriamkirmayer.com, but for now, Casual to Close, and I'm also on Twitter and Facebook under
Awesome.
Casual to Close.
Miriam, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening in to Life Unrehearsed. You can catch us every Sunday at 4 o'clock, and please join us next week. We have a great show planned. We have Renee Blanchette and Stephanie Cadieux talking about the ever-challenging downsizing and sale of your home. Are you considering that? And then we also have Melissa Hinley as our guest to discuss the challenges of finding yourself if you're suddenly single.